the very first time I talked to her, I remember I was like so nervous. I was in ninth grade. I was freaking out. Like I could not collect myself at all over the phone. But like very right away, I said, "Hey, Coach Summit." And she goes, "Hey, player Andraya, you can just call me Kat." And so like for her to immediately like just bring herself down to an approachable level for me was really something that I think about all the time.
Hello and welcome to Stop the Clock, where we slow things down a little bit with your favorites in the sports industry. Now, if they're not already your favorite, and if I'm decent enough at my job, then they will be your favorites by the end of the episode. I am so very excited for this first episode back of the rebrand. One of my favorites in the sports industry, becoming a big fan favorite of a lot. You know why? Because she does everything. She's great at it. She does women's basketball. She does college basketball. She does sideline reporter. She co-hosts the show. If you don't know who she is, then you're not locked in. And I hate that for you. But by further ado, we have Andraya Carter from ESPN and SEC Network. Drea, how are you today?
I am great, getting ready for the March Madness that is coming currently. So I'm super excited. This is the best time of year. So it's thrive time for me.
Right. Have you gotten 8 hours of sleep lately?
No, I'm not an 8 hour sleep girl. Like if I get like 5 or 6, I'm good to go. I usually nap on planes and I usually fly a lot every week. So I make up for my sleep in different ways.
Listen, this is one of the busiest women in the world. I remember when I was at ESPN and I was working on Out of Pocket, and they would be like, "Yeah, Dre's good. She'll be here at 11. She was in Atlanta doing this event, and then she went to the WNBA finals, and then Alyssa's like, yeah, and then she's at Orange Theory, and you would come, and I'd be like, wow, like she's got to be a little bit like over this. You come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready for the day and have a great show. So are you a window seat, aisle seat? Do you need the pillow? Like if napping on the plane is your thing, how does it go?
I'm an aisle seat because I pee a lot. So I drink a lot of water, try to stay hydrated. That's key, especially when flying a ton. So I'm an aisle seat girl if I can be. And I'm literally just like head back, tilted, done. Like I don't need a pillow. I don't need to lean on anything. The worst part about my job is I actually have pretty bad motion sickness. So the flying is really difficult. Like it's not easy. Yeah, like once we're in the air, it's good. But going up and coming down, I feel like I could just pass out every time. So I just try to go to sleep as fast as possible. And I do. And my body helps me that way. So it works out.
That's crazy. I have to be like, I'm one of I need the neck pillow. I need the blanket. I need the everything. Yes. But obviously 5 hours of sleep is working for you. 2022 NSMA Best Reporter. As somebody who has the journey that you've had, that we'll get into, of course, what was it like when you initially found out that you had won that award, an award in the same award season as Lisa Salters, who is, everybody in all the women in our industry, one of our goals. What was that like for you?
It was crazy. It was really cool. Like Amanda Brooks, our ESPN PR person, who's like my go-to for everything. She was the one who told me about it and told me about Lisa Salters. And like, I was just like, wait, I'm going to be on the same graphic as Lisa Salters. Like even that in itself was just wild to me. I didn't know when I got into this, I never thought about awards. Like I didn't know there were awards for broadcasting or sports or anything like that. I had no idea. And so I felt so good about my 2022. Like when I looked back, just like life-wise and career-wise, and like putting my career first and just really putting my head down and doing the work. Like I felt so good about my year just on my own, which I think is the best feeling. But then for an organization as big as this one to take a look at the body of work of all young reporters, in the nation, and to choose me was pretty surreal. Like at first I thought it was a joke. I was like, are you serious? But I just think to feel good about it internally and then receive external validation was really big for me, because I used to be someone that really thrived off of external validation. Like I would finish a show and catch myself immediately reaching out to the producer just to see if what they felt about the show. And now I can finish a show and be like, oh, that was bad, or oh, that was good. And so that's how I felt about my whole year. Looked back and was like, good year, Drea. And then to get the award was just like, oh, okay, like it is a good year in the eyes of someone else as well. So it was really special. I was really thankful.
And that external validation, when do you feel like that kind of slowed down for you and you were like, and you can, go off then?
Probably this past year, because when I started I was part-time. I was part-time for a few years, and I felt like I was doing TV so sporadically that I could never really gauge what felt good. Like I just had no idea. I would finish a show and be like, well, if they bring me back, I think it's good. And if not, then it's probably bad. But then like this past year, I was full-time. I went full-time 2 years ago. So this past year was like my second year full-time. It was my second year doing football. It was my second year doing ACC men's basketball. Like it was a year where I already had an idea of what everything felt like. And I had connections in different areas, different SIDs, different coaches, everything just felt more natural. So I felt like I was really able to finish something and be like, okay, that was good. It wasn't new. It wasn't foreign. I wasn't guessing. I went in with confidence and I performed well. Or I went in prepared and performed well, or didn't perform well, or man, I didn't prepare for that the way that I should have. And that's why I performed that way. So I think this year, which is my fourth year on TV, second year full time. So I would honestly say it's been a long journey to like actually be able to feel like I did well or didn't do well on my own.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the beginning of the journey. You were a hooper, one of the great ones, definitely in Georgia, especially at your time. And you decided this always, like, for somebody like me, I realized that I wanted to do this at 12 years old. And I was like, wow, that's really young. Like I always feel bad for people who don't have like that sense of what they want to do, like that long-term goal, because it's a lot to figure out, to go ahead and try to figure out what your path is going to be, who you're going to become. You decided at 7 years old that you wanted to play at Tennessee for Pat Summitt. What about that program and Pat Summitt, obvious reason, like we know she's the GOAT, but at 7 years old, you knew that. What about it made you decide?
I think it just stood out to me. Like it was close to home, from Atlanta. My Nana, may she rest in peace, Andraya Carter, she was a big basketball fan, and like we would watch games together, and it was just something like about the orange. Like I was so young, I was such a kid, but like the orange and the bright uniforms and the fans and the crowd, and then this coach has books, and I love to read, and like just I would read about how she washed the team's uniforms when she first started coaching. And just I think Pat's story and her passion, it just spoke to me from a young age, and wanting to be a part of the bright team that everybody recognizes and that everybody knows and that's really good. And I loved basketball from a young age, and I think it was a really lofty dream at 7. Like I didn't even really know what it meant, but I knew that was a team, and I knew like I could possibly be on that team one day. And so I think just, from a young age, it just stood out, like it's a bright orange that you either love or you either hate. And I think to love it, it has to be deeply rooted. Like people don't always just flip the switch and they're like, okay, I like this orange now. Like it's so rare. So I don't know. Just from a young age, it just was something I wanted to be a part of.
And so you're from Georgia, played basketball throughout your entire life until you graduated college. What was it like? What is it like to play basketball in Georgia, especially to be as good as you were?
Georgia was fun. I felt like, and I feel like all my friends would agree from Georgia, we had like probably the deepest state in terms of all of us together. Like there's so many players that are still like Diamond DeShields, Lexi Brown, Kayla Davis, De'Erica Hamby. Like there's so many players that we played in this circuit where we went to Division I schools, and now so many of them have gone on to play professional basketball. Like it's been so much fun to watch. And like we were such kids, like we were so little and we were competitive and the games were fun. Like I remember in AAU tournaments, we'd be playing another team that had a whole stacked roster, and like it'd be packed, like it'd be 4 rows deep on the wall to watch the games at these AAU tournaments. And we'd finish games and just hang out, and you're friends with other players on other teams. And then you go on to college and you're still playing against your friends, so you're jabbing each other on the court and you're making jokes, and you get together before or after the game. And it just was this like family, and it's just kind of carried on through life. And now we're all on these professional journeys, and it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. Like I look back on those days with a very, very full heart because it was great.
Is there any specific time with somebody that you keep in contact now still that you remember from those younger days?
Oh, there's all of them. I mean, like the memories are endless. Like I remember just watching cartoon shows with Lexi Brown at Kayla's house, like before a game, and needing to, steal socks from one of my teammates. And you know what I mean? Just like these very small moments that for some reason still stick with you. I remember playing against Diamond, and I remember, playing against Jasmine Jenkins, who went on to play at Vanderbilt. So we were rivals in high school, we were rivals in AAU, and we were rivals in college, and we've been best friends through all of it as well. So there are so many memories. Like I remember playing AOT, and that was like Kayla, Diamond, and Lexi's team. And I remember playing, Georgia Pistols and the Georgia Pistols Elite, and all these different players. And going hard. Like we went hard against each other, but it was like a good, healthy level of respect between all of us.
Right. You mentioned Lexi. I see Lexi is starting to dabble in the media industry as well, to know how much it's given you and to know how much you enjoy it. What is it like to see her get to start that journey as well?
Well, it's the best because I asked Lexi if she wanted to do it. So
okay.
Brittany's in the background. She says hi. Hey. ACC Network needed somebody, and I thought Lexi would be great. And I mean, she speaks well. She's one of my close friends. Like I'm always trying to put my friends on. I'm like, hey, do you want to do this? Because you know the game. We like need more women that look like us. You can speak as a player. You can speak in so many different levels. Like, do you want to do this? Because I want you here. Like, I want to be on a show next to you one day. And even for Lexi, with it being like a side thing, still, it's just a huge opportunity to share her experience and to connect to young women, young men, young women, anybody really. So it's awesome to see any of my friends come on, even if they just come on for a segment. I'm like, yes, go speak. Like, I just think it's a connection opportunity, and it's special. Like I want to see all my friends thrive. I feel like there's room for all of us, and it's the best feeling to watch her on her shows. I just feel like I'm like beaming because she's so good and she's just so much fun, and you don't always see that when you watch them play. So it's a unique opportunity for her to just kind of be herself.
No, I love it. I was so excited to see her. I saw her post about it. I was like, wait a minute, she does this. This should be her next thing for sure. So it's super cool to know that you said, hey, you want to do this? And I feel like that's so you. Like it is so apparent how much you want to help the next person. I remember like it was you probably didn't even realize it. But to me, it was like super like validating and helpful to me when I was at ESPN. and I knew that I wanted to be on the camera, but like at that time, I just needed like, I felt like I had to do something, and there weren't really too much going on there, but I was like, ESPN, I love it. So producers like Jonathan knew I wanted to be on air. So that's why he would pull, that's why I was kind of really the only one around out of pocket. And you'd just be like, come on, Lex, come on, like, are you ready? Like you would make sure like I wasn't just there, but I was with you guys. And I really appreciated that. What like, obviously there have been so many people that have helped you. Why is it so important for you to bring up, your friends or, just anybody that wants to be in the industry?
It's so important to me because that's how I got here. So like I think it's one thing, your family's going to believe in you, your friends are going to believe in you, the people you date, they're going to believe in you, like you're going to have that support. But when it comes from someone that's in it just goes so much further. Like even when I was a player, I wrote letters. Christy Thomas played at Buford High School. My dad would take me to watch her play. I ended up going to Buford High School, unrelated, but she went on to play at Georgia, and I was in elementary school and I wrote her letters and she wrote me back. And at the time we were just pen pals, and now we're like sisters. Like I'm her child is my niece. Like we're very close. And so, but seeing someone in a position that I wanted to be in, like I wanted to be her. She was mixed, she had curly hair, she was so good, she was so much fun to watch, everybody loved her. That's who I wanted to be. And she reached back out to me, and like her just saying like, keep going, you're going to be great, to me as a kid was huge. Like it made me firmly believe that I could do it. And then so moving on, like going to college and still having her support. But then when basketball stopped for me, Maria Taylor and LaChina Robinson and Carolyn Peck, like women that were in the space that I wanted to be in, said that I could do it. They said they thought I could do it. Whether they were being just nice at the time or whether they firmly believed it, it fueled me. Like I still have a screenshot to this day of a tweet from Rebecca Lobo that says Andraya Carter on SEC Network Plus games is a solid analyst. Like just that tweet alone just shot my confidence through the roof. And so for me, even though I feel like, like Maria Taylor took me to tour the same SEC studio that you and I worked in together. And I have pictures from that. And she let me sit at the desk and just talked to me about, hey, you could do this if you really wanted to. So for me, even though I feel like still I'm just getting started and there's still so many things I don't know, I just think pouring into people that are passionate about it and that I see potential in the same way people poured into me, like I have to pay it forward, because that's really the only way I can pay them back. Like I can't, rarely am I ever going to be able to help Maria or help China or help them.
Right.
Like I'm not going to be able to pay them back. But if I can pay it forward to you or to whoever reaches out, with the little that I know right now, and we can just be in it together, I feel like I'm repaying all that they've done for me, confidence wise and support wise.
Now, confidence, you played with confidence, great on defense, just so fun to watch. I obviously watched your highlights in prep for this interview. Who gave you that confidence in the game as you were coming up?
Man, it's so crazy. Like, I feel like I am just the conglomerate effort of my whole support system, because I had the best coaches. Like, you hear about people coming through sports and having such terrible experiences with coaches. And I always try to, be empathetic to those people because I cannot relate. Like, I had incredible coaches from a young age. So Pam Overstreet was one of my first rec coaches, and she was the one who told my parents, Andraya needs to play AAU and she needs to play 1 or 2 years up. Like, you just need to push her more. And that was just instant confidence in my parents and to me. Like, oh, well, if coach says it, then it must be true. Because coach at the time, I felt like she knew everything. And, then I go on and I had great trainers, and my high school coach, Gene Dirt, and my AAU coach, Tim Ellis. Like, they just very much so poured into the idea that effort and hustle and heart and passion can get you far. And that's what I kind of built my career on. Like I had a lot of confidence on that end of the floor when it came to defense. Offensively, I struggled, which I feel like gives me a good perspective when I'm, analyzing players now. But I just, from coaches to teammates to trainers to my parents, my family, I just had a very deeply rooted sense that putting in the time was going to get the results. So like that's where my confidence came from. My confidence came from prep, my confidence came from practice, my confidence came from sprinting hard, working hard, lifting hard, training hard. If I was doing those things, I felt confident, despite varying results, because sometimes things didn't go the right way. But prep wise, that's where my confidence came from. And it's just translated directly to the work that I do now.
So backtracking just a little bit, going off of that, like we said, 7 years old, you decided. Then sophomore year, you get that letter. You go, what was it like when you actually got that letter? Like it's one thing to dream it, but to have it, number one, validated, and that sense of accomplishment. Like what was that day like when you got that offer letter?
Well, it was kind of wild because the game that Pat came to, I remember it like it was yesterday. We were playing Gainesville High School, and I think I only had like 8 points. So like I didn't score the basketball very well. I think I had a lot of steals, a lot of rebounds, still played hard. But I remember leaving and being like, she's not gonna offer me. Like it's not gonna happen. I was in high school. So I was in 10th grade. So I didn't, I was like, okay, we'll see.
Right.
I still got time, and I had a lot of offers at the time, but none of the ones that I really wanted. And so I was still waiting. Like I wanted an offer from Connecticut, I wanted an offer from Tennessee, and those were kind of the schools that were left for me. And I remember her calling my high school coach because she couldn't call me at the time, and then told me to call her, and I cried. I was so shocked and happy, and I remember I wanted to commit like right away. I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I want to commit. Like I want to go right away. He was like, no, wait. And if you win the state championship, I will allow you to commit to Pat Summitt. I was like, so I don't know, this little deal he made with me. We won the state championship. I called her after that. But it was surreal. Like I just remember just talking to her and her saying, like, I want you to come to the University of Tennessee and I want you to play for me and be a Lady Ball. And it was just a really special moment, like for me, for my family, for everybody that was so close to me. I feel like that, and really any award that happens, I'm like, we did it, guys. Like this is all of us. This is for all of us. And so it was really special.
And you were one of the last to sign with Pat Summitt, one of the last to really get to know her. Is there ever a conversation that you guys have that, runs through your head, or even just, a quote or a word of advice that, helps you now to this day?
For me, there was the very first time I talked to her. I remember I was like so nervous. I was in 9th grade. I was freaking out. Like I could not collect myself at all over the phone. But like very right away, I said, hey, Coach Summitt. And she goes, hey, player Andraya, you can just call me Pat. And so like for her to immediately like just bring herself down to an approachable level for me was really something that I think about all the time, because there are times where people will reach out to me and be like, I know this is a long shot. And I'm always like, it's not a long shot. What's up? Like, you know what I mean? Just to like immediately be like, this isn't a long shot. Like we are the same. Like, what can I do for you? Or how can I help you? Or what's up? What do you want to chat about? And so I think for a legend to just, bring herself down and not, keep herself in this elevated sense that she was already in my mind, and the humility to do that and not take herself so too seriously when she could have easily, taken herself extremely seriously given the legend that she was and that she is. So I think that's a really big one. Like I just always try to move in a very approachable way, and that's pretty big for me. And that's a moment that I'll just never forget from Pat.
So you play at Tennessee, have a good career for the things that you were going through. Obviously, mounted injuries, and unfortunately, it comes to a time where you say, "Hey, I have to put the ball down. Like it's time." And not only did you stop playing the game that you've been playing since you were 4 years old, but something that college athletes talk about a lot, losing once you stop losing that schedule, that routine, that sense of belonging, something to do, to you automatically have, goals to achieve. And there's so many instances where college athletes, when they stop, when they end that chapter of their life, their mental health becomes, something that they really struggle with. What were those first couple of months or so like, when you had to give up that dream?
Those first couple of months were brutal. I mean, and really it was a brutal stretch for a while. Like even I would say up until I like started my job at Orange Theory, which was a couple years later, and was like part-time with ESPN but gaining some traction. It was like a 2 or 3 year stretch between finishing, deciding not to play, and that moment where I was like pretty lost. Like
Right.
it was hard, like from unhealthy relationships with myself, unhealthy relationships with others, and unhealthy relationships with working out. Like it just, I didn't have a great concept of what I deserved as a person because I didn't know what I
Right.
deserved without putting effort on the court and without producing and having a product out there and doing what I've done for so long. Like there was just so much worth and value tied into who I was that was attached to the game. And I felt like I had enough of a sense of self outside of basketball to let it go because I knew I could figure something out. I was working on my master's degree. I was in so much pain playing that it didn't make sense to continue to play. Like that last year of my career was just so brutal, from shots to like I couldn't really walk. I couldn't sit for a long time. I couldn't stand for a long time. Like I couldn't do anything because of my knee and the bruising and the like it didn't make sense to play. I had a little sense of what I could do outside of basketball just from networking and meeting people in Knoxville and having 2 degrees. Like I was like, I'm not going to fall on my face, but it was a lot of stumbling after that
Right.
decision. It was hard. I mean, it's something that I don't feel like is talked about enough. I know we're talking about it a lot more now, but it was a really brutal transition, just trying to figure out what I wanted my life to look like. And it wasn't until I found another passion, both with Orange Theory and with ESPN, that I started to like gain traction as far as like, oh, I can still be a structured person that values myself, but I needed a new passion to really feel that again.
Now, talk to me a little bit about that transition when you started to pick up that passion for media. How did that, because it wasn't something like you said that you knew you wanted to do. Basketball was what you wanted to do. How did you find that new passion?
Yeah, it was weird. Like when I was a player, I always connected to the analyst. Like I had a great relationship with Carolyn Peck. She'll still make jokes now about her getting me out of a shooting slump. And like I would go chat with the people at the desk, and at the SEC tournament, I'd go hang out with Nell Fortner and Andy Landers and Maria Taylor and like just chat with them. And I connected to Maria really early. She was still doing like online games, and so I caught her at the front of her career before she just blew up, and we got to be pretty cool. And so, like as a player, I always was really cool with the analysts.
Yeah.
And I remember just a few of them between LaChina and Maria and Carolyn saying like, "Hey, you should give this a try. Tennessee does online games. You should see if they'll let you be their analyst. Make a couple $100. You're already in Knoxville. Just try it." I was terrible. It was not great. My first reel from that first year of online games is the worst but best piece of like video ever. Um, but also like just going back to sport, like Tom Givens and Stacia, like the people at Tennessee at Vol for Life Films would just rewatch my games with me and be like, okay, you said this, but think about it this way. Or like,
Right.
what did you mean by that? Or you said she needs to sprint harder, but it was at the back end of 3 sentences where you named 3 other people. So who is she? Right?
Right.
Like just little things that and once I started, even in that first year, being like, oh, this is something that you can work at. Like, this is something you have to get better at. This is something that reps help. This is something that I can feel more confident in. The more that I practice, the more I get reps, the more that I work on speaking clearly and, being direct with what I'm saying. That's when I started to have a passion for it. Like, I wanted to be good at it, but it took a while to gain traction because, I have an Excel document of every assignment I've ever done on TV, like anything I've been on. I have it. And so like that first year was online stuff. And then, so I don't have the online year, but that second year I did like 2 TV games and then it turned into 10. And then the next year they gave me 7 on the front end, turned into like 17. And so it was definitely a process of just getting reps. Like when I first started, I'd do a game 1 week and then maybe not have a game for another 2 weeks. And so it was just really hard to feel like I was doing anything. But, give Pat Lowry and the ESPN team credit because every year they just gave me a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So I gained traction slowly. It feels like it's been a lot because this past year has just exploded, but it's been quite the journey. I drove Uber, I drove for Lyft, I worked at a place called Wood Grain Distribution, I sold crown molding, I trained a lot of kids, I did a lot of strength training and performance training with young kids in Atlanta and in Knoxville, and just kind of had to find my way.
Now, part of that journey, I read that there was a 30 days or 2-month span, I think, where you did 30 trips, Charlotte, Atlanta, no music, no podcast. What were the thoughts going through your head?
That trip was brutal. So that was a time where I was working full-time at Orange Theory. So 5 days a week, I would have to coach classes. But then on Sundays and Thursdays, I got to be in the SEC Network studio. But it was also the opportunity, it was post-COVID was that stretch. Yeah, so it was 2021. It was like spring 2021. And so a lot of games were being called from home studios, but I didn't get a home studio. So my home studio was Charlotte, but I was living in Atlanta.
Right.
So I would like coach classes on Monday in the evening. And then Tuesday morning, I would coach classes in the morning. And then I would drive to Charlotte to call a game on Tuesdays. I called a couple men's games, called some women's games. Then I would drive back, coach on Wednesday. I'd open again on Thursday and then drive to Charlotte for our show Thursday night. Then I drive back after the show to coach on Friday, coach on Saturday. And then Saturday night, I would drive to Charlotte for a show or a game on Sunday. And then on Monday, it would repeat. So it just was literally like down and back, down and back. And there wasn't an off day because when I wasn't at Orange Theory, I was in Charlotte working. So it was, after a while, there was like podcasts and stuff in the beginning, but towards the end, like I would feel so overwhelmed. Like I couldn't handle any input. Like I couldn't handle anything coming into my brain. I would literally just drive.
Right.
And there were times where I called LaChina crying, like, you're just so tired that you're just emotional.
Yeah.
And I was at a point where I was just like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I can't do this every basketball season. I need Orange Theory to pay my bills, but I want to do TV, but I can't do this again. Like, I can't do this next year. And so when I started thinking about, it was maybe January, February, but I started, getting way out of the present moment. I started thinking about November through the next basketball season. I was like, I can't do this again. So if something doesn't happen after this, where I can focus more on ESPN, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'll just be an Orange Theory coach. I love Orange Theory, make decent money. And I'm not going to repeat this. And I went full time in May that year. So I was able to quit Orange Theory after that stretch. But there's like the cliche quote that was like, don't give up. You're so close to reaching it. Or like, you can't quit now. You're almost at the finish line.
Right.
And I just didn't see it. Like, I couldn't see the finish line. It looked like an endless black hole for me. And it wasn't 2 months later. I went full time and quit Orange Theory. And now I'm just as busy, but it's all TV. So it's great.
Right. Who you were fronting the gas bill?
Yeah. So the best part was the expense your mileage. So I was whipping my little Nissan that I still have, my 2017 Nissan Altima. So good to me. His name is John Snow. I'm gonna try and hold on to them as long as I can. But I got to expense the mileage, so at least I made money on the trips.
Right. When you finally got to the finish line, you said it just feels like it's endless. I'm never gonna get there. What did it feel like to finally have, like, would you compare that to another goal that you achieved, or was that just so like, wow, like I did it?
I think the wow I did it part is the part that stands out to me because it applies in everything. Like I remember like tearing my ACL in high school, and that at that time that rehab felt so hard. Like it just, there were days where I cried. There were days where I didn't think I was going to run again. Days where it was, all of that stuff was so brutal. Or like when my Nana passed away. I mean, she was the most important person in my entire world. And there was like, I couldn't get out of bed. Like I didn't see a light at the end of that tunnel and make it through that. And then to, lose Pat and to give up the game of basketball and not see a light at the end of that tunnel. And like everything that has been really hard has had an ending. And so I think that for me, it's just added to, because even now, like in a stretch where, again, it's all relative at this point, but when I had WNBA finals and out of pocket and college football, it was, Seattle on Sunday to Vegas on Tuesday to Charlotte on Wednesday for out of pocket to Vegas again on Thursday to wherever I was going for college football on Friday, Saturday, and then to back to Seattle on Sunday. Like it was just a crazy stretch during the finals. And it was hard. And there were some autopilot days where I'm just like, where am I going? Don't talk to me. Like where I have to get there. And then you turn it on as soon as you get there and you perform and you do your best. And so I think, and then it's over and you're like, oh, yeah, it's over. Like, dang, I kind of missed the finals already. Right. So I think just it's helped me keep perspective now when things feel very hectic. Like I've had enough tough experiences that have come to an end and I've been able to make it through, where now when I'm in the middle of what feels like a tough experience, I keep perspective so much better. And, I didn't do a good job of that back in that stretch where I was going from Orange Theory to Charlotte. I did not do a great job of that. I didn't do a great job when I was younger in college and going through things. And now from those life experiences and just coming into my own, I think I do a solid job of being like, man, this is hard. I'm crying right now because this is really hard, but I'm going to be okay. And it always feels amazing to come out on the other end, especially with the people I work with and my family and my support system. Like I never come out of something by myself. I come out of something and there's just so many people around me that are just, we're high-fiving and we're excited and we're just sharing all of these moments. So every tough situation, I come out of it with amazing people next to me. And it's honestly one of the best feelings. Like it's, I don't want to say it's fun, but it's nice to go through something hard. If everything was easy, then I don't know where I get my confidence from.
Right. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about, you have become good at a lot of things. You have a lot of different titles. And I don't think people realize how hard that is. There's a difference between hosting and analyzing and sideline reporting. And for somebody who, wasn't aware that this was going to be, the path, you had to just figure it out and, just reps and everything like that. What was the hardest one for you to like kind of really get jiggy with,
Man, so my first sideline reporting hit, I told the China I didn't want to be a sideline reporter from the very beginning. I ended up being a sideline reporter. But my first hit on camera, it was Missouri. I don't remember who they were playing. Tamika Catchings and Eric Freed were the play-by-play and analysts. They're so great. And they tossed to me and like, I don't know what it was about just staring into the camera and having to speak that I should have practiced a lot more because I felt frozen. Like I just did not feel like, I don't feel like my words came out. I don't know. I think getting used to it now I can do it, but something about standing and staring at a camera and trying not to pay attention to all the people that are staring at you as you stare at the camera, that took some getting used to. For sure. And then hosting is so hard. Like to be a good host I always appreciate the amazing hosts that I work with because I'm like, this is not easy. So I would say between sideline reporting and hosting, those were hard for me to tackle. Like the first show I hosted, I internally felt like I was on fire. I think I
Right.
did a better job because it was later on in my career so far that I started to host. So I was like able to manage that a little bit better than when I first sideline reported. But both of those roles are so much harder than like you hear so many people, they're like, oh yeah, I want to be a sideline reporter. Oh yeah, I want
Right.
to host. And I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah. Because it's like
But it's
on
hard.
you, like I said, you do everything under the sun. You have to like travel to get there. So that takes some time. But the prep that goes into that, like there's so much, and you prep essentially the same, but differently for each of those
Mhm.
roles. Hosting, you're like, quarterback in the show, really making sure that it all goes smoothly. But for sidelines, you get to be like in it, a part of it. What was the first game where you were like, yo, like I get to be a part of this and I'm really doing it, for somebody who didn't want to be a sideline reporter, even
Right,
though she's
right.
good at it?
Yeah, I one of my first sideline experiences, actually, was this my first? It was the G League Winter Showcase, and it was in
Okay.
Vegas. And I'll never forget this. So they booked me for a pretty last minute, and they couldn't book the hotel for me. So like through ESPN, you book the hotel, it's paid for, whatever. And I had like just a couple months earlier got approved for a credit card. And so I get there like, hey, we want you to go to Vegas. It's a ton of games. But when you get there, you're gonna have to pay for the hotel on your own and then we'll reimburse you. And I
Yeah.
did not know if my card was gonna be enough to cover the hotel. Like I had no idea because I knew I didn't have it in my debit. I knew I didn't have my bank account. I was like relying on this credit card. I remember being there's like the Mandalay Bay Resort. I was like, this is gonna be terrible. And I like gave him my credit card. I was like not sure if it was gonna swipe, not sure if it was going to go through. I was like, I'm just going to sleep in the lobby and not tell them, like, whatever, I'm just going to make this work. Ended up
Right.
going through. But that showcase was so cool because there were some guys at Tennessee that were playing, and there's not fans in the showcase. It's just like scouts, and you can hear all the players talking, and it just almost felt like covering pickup games, but they were
Right.
intense and they were fun. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And like, and the guys were just so cool. Like, I feel like doing that event was really great for me to start because it was just like, wasn't a huge event. And I felt very connected to some of the guys because I knew them and there wasn't a huge crowd. And so when I did that one, I was not very good, but I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I get to go behind the bench and just hear what they're saying and listen into the huddles and hear how they're talking to each other. And again, that was more of a showcase.
Right.
So it was a little less, I got to get it right. It was more like, guys, he just said this. And, like it just was a little more loose of an environment. But even that right away I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. One of the first football games I did was at Texas A&M. It was the first football game that I did. And to be there at that field in that stadium with 100,000 fans around me, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I could do color analyst as a basketball, I could do color as a basketball analyst, but that's really the only way I'll experience football is as a sideline reporter. And so when I did that, I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. And then I've done amazing, like softball, beach volleyball is something that I'm still going to do this year because I loved it so much.
Oh.
But yeah, experiencing different sports and being right there on the ground to learn from the coaches and players as a sideline reporter is really cool.
Now, you have worked your butt off, obviously, to get where you are. And that there's so much time, obviously, dedicated to being good at what you do. Even though part of what makes you so fun to watch and so great to watch and why everybody loves you is your personality. It's organic, but obviously there's the work that comes with it. Who is Drea outside of work? If all of this is taken away, who is Drea?
Wow. I try to every day, I feel like be someone that like I meditate on a pretty consistent basis. And I try to be just a good like friend, family member, like how passionate I am about basketball. like that's how passionate I get for my friends that are doing something. Like my friend Marjorie is getting matched on Friday to go to medical school for her residency, or go to her residency for medical school. And like, I'm so excited for her. Like I can't even, I could just burst with excitement for her. Or, you know, like I feel like outside of work, I am still just as like passionate and supportive and hopefully loving and caring to my people. And you know, I feel like if it wasn't ESPN, I would be passionate about something else. And you know, like when I was at Tennessee, I was passionate about basketball, but I also was so passionate when I was training kids in these rec centers, and you know, kids that I'm still close to this day, and have relationships with to this day. And in Atlanta, I was passionate about Orange Theory. Like every class that I coached, I wanted to just give those members everything. Every member that I talked to, I wanted to be intentional with how I spoke to them and hearing about their journeys. And so I think that outside of work, I'm a passionate supporter of others, a meditator, a little angsty. I have an existential crisis on a daily basis. That's why I meditate, to get through that. I love to read. I love to relax. I love to work out. I've just started boxing, so that's a big thing.
Really?
Yeah. So I think outside of work, and maybe hopefully that's why it seems to be organic, because I don't have to try to get fired up or excited about things. Like things just move me. Like I feel very moved. Like I feel like the world, that's like dramatic, but I just feel like things move through me. Like I feel things, and I think that it translates to the work that I do because I love it.
Now, I could really sit here and talk to you all day. We're going to have to do part 2 one day, because I still have so much that I want to talk about, but I know you have other things to get to. One last thing. Who is March Madness? Who do you have in the women's winning? Who do you have in the men's winning? For those who are weird and don't watch ESPN.
For the women, I've got South Carolina. That's South Carolina versus everybody at this point. For the men, I very narrowly do men's basketball right now because I do ACC. So I have the ACC Big Monday Packers. So I know those teams. I watch other games, but I can't give an analysis piece on the men. But it would be just magical. It would be magical if Duke went on to win it.
If Duke went on to win it. Well, you just told me that my women's bracket is going to go fine because South Carolina versus everybody.
Yeah.
And we won't talk about my men's bracket. We're just going to hope for the best. But thank you so much, Andraya, for giving us a little bit of your time today. And can't wait to see you keep killing it, especially for March Madness.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you. Like
We're
going to flip this one day. If I ever have a podcast, I'll be interviewing you.
Wow.
Because you're making this same journey that I made. So keep going, sis.
Thank you so much.